Hello and welcome to another instructional video from the good folks there at Great Lakes Medical Billing and Practice Management. Today we are going to discuss avantMD version 2.0 with a focus on what's different basically between the current version and the new version 2.0. The objective again is to show, just highlight some of the differences. It's not really intended to be a training video. It's more intended to help with basic navigation compared to what you're used to. Okay, so we'll kick it off with obviously the commonalities. After all, it is a billing software, so there's going to be a lot of things that are the same. Patients are patients after all. We'll then get into some of the changes in the look and feel and navigation. 2.0 also has a different way to manage clients and practices and locations and things like that with the hierarchies, as well as differences in how user roles are managed. Also stressing the point that in avantMD 2.0 we do not have the concept of invoices any longer. They're just simply claims. And also touch on the fact that it's continuously improving. So with that, we will go ahead and log in. You'll notice as well that although I'm calling this avantMD version 2.0, that's just the name of the project to upgrade. We're actually on 2.1.2, and it'll probably be on a different version by the time you start using it. So we'll just go ahead and log in here. So initially, you can see that there's a different home screen. We've got some KPIs here on the home screen, but also you'll notice you've got appointments and you've got patients and you've got claims, and the appointments calendar is kind of what you might expect it to look like as far as appointments go. And similarly, again, patients, you've got patients, you've got claims, payments, statements, reports. So, it really is kind of, at its core, a practice management billing software. So, where do you go to find patients? Well, you go to patients. And what do you do in the appointments tab? Well, you create appointments and so on and so forth. And as well, if you wanted to create an appointment, in this case, we have to select the location. You'll notice that I'm using a demo account. And we can pick a provider, pick Nurse Jackie. And again, you put in the patient, the reason, the start, the duration, so on and so forth. So, again, there's going to be slight differences, but for the most part, they're appointments. Similarly, you've got patients, and we'll get into some of these details later. But again, for the most part, it is kind of what you might expect it to be. Okay. Again, some differences, but for the most part, the starting point is they're very similar. Okay. Now, the big thing that you'll notice that's different is kind of the look and feel when it comes to navigation. And actually this kind of tricked me a little bit, I guess, when I initially started using avantMD 2.0. So the first thing I want to talk about are really kind of the three big topics, the mouse overs, the multiple windows, and the zoom and scrolling. Okay, so what you'll notice here is in the old system where you would click on, for example, patients, here it's a mouse over type of thing. So you'll notice just by mousing over it, you get the sub menu. Okay, and this can be a little bit, you just kind of got to get used to it as far as like if I wanted to go here and go to patients, if I went left and down, you'll notice I moused over appointments. There is no sub menu under appointments. But so what you got to do is just go down and over to patients. Okay. Similarly, if I wanted to go to claims, it can get real frustrating if you're trying to, go in a diagonal, it changes the mouse over. So again, just, kind of get in the habit of going to moving the way you're managing your mouse to, kind of go down and over as needed. I found that to be very frustrating the initial few times I started using it. But once you get used to, being aware that the mouse over might change the sub menus you've got, you'll be fine. So I wanted to point that out so it doesn't frustrate you like it frustrated me initially. The next thing that I wanted to point out was the fact that you've got multiple windows here and there's a zooming and scrolling thing. So now when and this is really going to depend upon your resolution, the monitor you've got, the zoom settings you got, and really the answer is going to be to play around with your zoom settings. Because what you'll notice here is, first of all, that the entire content does not appear on one page width. Okay, you've got to scroll over. Okay, yeah, we would expect you'd have to scroll up and down, but you have to, in this example, you got to scroll over to see the contents of the right hand of the screen. You'll notice they're cut off here. Okay, and if I went, for example, to go and let's find and actually in this case I'm just going to search because it's a demo account and there's only 3 patients in here. So if I go into Cookie Monster, and again, just for the most part, what you would expect, the name, the gender, phone number, what insurance they've got. In this case, Cookie Monster has priority health insurance. Okay. Now, if I wanted to give them a secondary insurance, and I go to create, you almost didn't notice it, but there's another window now that popped up. Okay. And again, there's a scrolling left, and you can see the window over the gray background window. Okay, so you can see that, but it's not necessarily intuitive. Okay, and it wasn't when I first started using it. Okay, and you'll notice then that you might be a little bit confused. All right, well, I want to cancel. I don't want to create. I want to go back. I want to cancel. How do I get rid of this window? And you'll notice that at first glance, there is no way to go back. Okay, what you'll notice, however, is if you scroll over, you've got your traditional X to X out the window. Okay, so this can get quite frustrating if you're not aware of what's going on, because initially it just looks like you can't go back, you can't cancel. Okay, and as well, you've got this kind of annoying left-right scroll thing that you got to do. Okay, well, what I had found out was when I looked down on it on a different computer, it just because of the resolution or the size of the monitor, it didn't have this problem where you had to scroll left and right. Okay, and what you can do is in this case, I had to exaggerate it to 150% zoom just to make this point. On the other computer, it was just at 100%. But what you can do then is if you zoom out, in this case, and you got to play around with it a little bit to get a balance on font size and usability as far as scrolling and whatnot. But now in this case, with the zoom zoomed out a little bit, if you do a create new, now it's clear. Okay, there's a pop-up window. I get it now. And just like any other window, you should be able to move it around and whatnot. And just like any other window, you've got the little X out button if you wanted to back out. Okay, so one of the first things that you're going to want to do is just adjust your zoom setting. This is Firefox, and just adjust it so that basically it fits it to screen, and that you don't have the little scroll bar here at the bottom. You want it to be usable, and so you can see it and don't have to squint or get a magnifying glass out. And that way, when you're using the application and you do things like create a new window, in this case, you might benefit even from zooming out or back, zoom out a little bit more. And you can see now, okay, yep, I see the window. It's on top of this window in the background, and you just use your little X out to deal with that. So again, kind of a very annoying thing when you're not aware of what's going on. So that kind of covers the multiple windows and the zooming and scrolling. And again, definitely recommend you adjust your zoom as needed. Okay. Another thing that is not necessarily intuitive, you'll notice that you get the little finger, the hand icon here when you go over the priority health insurance record. You normally think that you can click and it'll open it up. Well, it's not doing anything. It's not opening it up. What you got to do is you got to click on the blue. Okay, so you see how the insurance company name is actually in the blue? That's where you got to click, okay, to open up the window. So whenever you're navigating around and you're seeing patients, for example, and you want to search for a patient, and you found them. And again, you would normally think that because it's changed from an arrow to a hand, that you could click on it, but that's not the case. You actually have to click on the blue. So clicking on the blue, that will then open it up. Okay. And you can also use the backspace key to go back. And so again, it was initially a bit frustrating trying to figure out, well, why isn't this opening up? Well, because you got to click on the blue. So not a big deal once you know it's there, and you got to deal with it. Those were, the primary differences that I had discovered compared to the older version as far as navigating goes. The next significant difference we've got here is in the hierarchy. In the old version, you would basically log into a given client account. If you're a Great Lakes biller, you would log into a client account, and then you would be within that account. In this case, you're basically in the entire system, and which client account or which location you want to work with really depends upon the data role and the menu role. The data role, saying, okay, you can access everything, or you can access just this location or just this client. You'll see that here basically in the settings. So again, you'll notice that I'm not going over and down. I'm going down and under almost. If you go to Office, you'll see that there's organization, billing company, entity, and practice and location. Now, for clients, clients are generally going to be logging in at the entity level. Okay, at this case, at this point, there's only one entity. This is designed to accommodate scenarios that are potentially more complex, where you've got, for example, one entity that has multiple practices, okay, multiple additional legal entities. So in this demo environment, I set it up that there's kind of like a holding company, you could almost think of it as. And then within that holding company, you've got different practices, okay? And then certainly within each practice, you might have different locations, whether it's a hospital or a nursing home or whatever the case may be, okay? And basically, these locations belong to a practice. The practice belongs to an entity. And again, when it comes to client usage, really, when you log in, you will only see your entity, okay? And your related practices and locations. And a lot of times it's simply going to be one entity has one practice and maybe even only has one location, okay? So you might see your company name here, here, and here. Again, it was designed to accommodate more complex types of scenarios. For Great Lakes billers, you're going to basically see it at the billing company level, with the entities basically being the clients. Okay, so just be aware of that. So when you're logging in, when you're doing a patient search, again, if you're the client, so if you're the client, you won't have to worry about selecting which entity. I'm in a demo entity. That's all I have access to is this demo entity, even though behind the scenes there are more entities. Okay, when you're logged in as a Great Lakes team member, you're going to be at the billing company level. So you would be able to select which client you want to search from. So if you were searching for, a client last name, you could certainly search across entities, but typically you're going to select then the entity that you're dealing with for that particular client, and then you can search by their, within that entity for that patient. Okay. And again, as I had mentioned, there are as far as the roles go, there's a menu role, which we'll set up for you, but it helps understanding what you might need to request, but by understanding how it's set up. So the menu role obviously tells you what items you get up here. We might have, maybe a clerical level staff that wouldn't have access to settings, for example, or maybe they wouldn't have access to reports, for example. Whereas an admin or a manager might have more menus to select from. And then as well, and again, I gotta be careful with it. With it, as far as the data roles go, that basically says, what entities or what practices you might have access to. You might have a client user that's, excuse me, only dealing with one particular location, so we can manage their access appropriately, or maybe they've got access to the entire practice. So anyway, excuse me, again, just wanted to point out the differences in the hierarchies, and I guess the big point there is for the Great Lakes team, the concept of logging in and then selecting a client, and then you're only working within that client. That's no longer the case. In 2.0, once you've logged in, you're basically logged in and are always logged into the entire billing company. And when it comes to working with a particular client or another client or whatever, you're going to be selecting that client in the search criteria. So just be aware of that. Also, and I won't show you in the system, there is no invoice. There's no concept of invoice. It does not exist in version 2.0. It's rather simply just a claim. Okay, so whereas in the older version, if you're a client user, you might have entered the basic information into an invoice screen, and then the Great Lakes biller would turn it into a claim and then submit it. In version 2.0, the client is going to be basically doing the same thing, entering the same basic data, but into the thing called the claim, and then the Great Lakes biller will review it, modify it, submit it as necessary. And then finally, for today's video, just be aware that what you're seeing here in version, and again, it's 2.1.2, I think, this is not the final. This is not the final by any stretch. We will be making continuous improvements over the next months and customizing it to where it needs to be. Again, 2.0 is the project name, even though we're on 2.1.2. You will notice when you first, if you're a client or a Great Lakes team, when you first log into the account and look at a particular client's data, the data will be migrated from 2.0, so you shouldn't have any worries there. Top priority is functionality. Okay, we need to be able to create claims, submit claims, get paid by have the clients get paid by the payers, post those payments, get patient statements out the door, and having them be accurate, having some basic financial statements be accurate and useful. Those are the top priorities. Other things like look and feel, like things like that will be put on an enhancement schedule for a later release. The upside compared to the prior version is that we will expect faster turnaround time on enhancements and customizations compared to the previous version. We will be developing an enhancement plan to prioritize those things, whether it's a firm requirement, we got to have it ASAP, versus a nice to have somewhere down the road. And as well, we will be developing reports. It's based on a SQL database, so we will be developing reports pretty much all the time until we get, first of all, a baseline set of reports that give more of what we need. Right now it's just your basic revenue, payments, claims, and aging. We will be, blowing this out so you can have more operational reports, all that kind of good stuff. So reporting is definitely something that's going to be worked on periodically. Worked on continuously and then deployed periodically. So that is the video. Again, just kind of a quick overview of what's changed in avantMD 2.0 versus the current version. And I hope when you get into start using it that this will help you get around a little bit more smoothly. All right. Thanks for watching.